think we're live now. Let me see. Okay. We're live now. Let's see. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we have Dr. Yahya Hasan with us, who is an educator, leader, and an advocate for personal and professional development. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we have Dr. Yahya Hasan with us, who is an educator, leader, and Dr. Yahya, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Yeah, well, very well. Thank you. Thank you for taking our invite and joining us for this very valuable podcast.
It is my pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Okay, so I'll make the stories very long, but we'll make it short for the time. It is first the blessing of God that got me here. I'm from a lower middle class family of Pakistan, and coming to the United States was first step to be where I am at. And so United States and things in the United States have definitely helped me be where I am at. Uh, Over the time I came in 2001, since that time, I have done my undergraduate from here, my graduate master's degree from here, and then doctorate from here. This journey was an experience, a personal experience, and also a professional experience that led me to what I am doing today. I landed in New Jersey, moved to New York in 2001. Right after that, September 11th happened. During that time, I really saw what America is all about and how a Muslim student from brown Muslim students being in a very white neighborhood was supported by people around him that I could not even believe, that I did not know. How they supported me in the time where uh, it was a mutual effort, but there was incidents happened that really showed me that this was all about humans. This all about it was not about religion or race. It was about humans. So I really truly understood the meaning of humanity there in upstate New York. 2006, I came to New Jersey, did my master's, and started working at Kane University. And since then, I'm there, and thank God of going through the different stages of my professional life. And today, I'm leading uh, Learning Commons at Kane University, and Kane University just was recognized as R2 University. So we are definitely doing great things at Kane University.
Well, great. Great to know. Okay. So, what really inspired you to focus on empathy and humility as the foundation of transforming teams?
I wouldn't say that something inspired me. I think this is empathetic and transformational leadership is these days is becoming a keyword, is becoming a hot topic for everyone to discuss. And this is how I started. I'm like, oh, it's a hot topic. Let's talk about it. Let's learn about it. But then more I got into it, more I understood how important it is for it to be recognized and understood carefully. As things are changing, as the work environment is changing, the workplace is completely changing. If you look at what we had in early 1900s, 1800s, and now what we have in the United States or anywhere in the world, it is changing. If you look at that, what's happening around the world, the whole world is changing and we are understanding it. We get to know what's happening in Pakistan, what's happening in India, what's happening in Australia right through our phones these days, right? So it is very important to understand that because we are in a global village where information and knowledge is at our fingertips, it is very different and sometimes very difficult for a leader to lead their organization to success if they are not empathetic and they're not leading by empathy or humility.
Okay.
The reason, another important part it is because everything is on our fingertips, it becomes very troublesome, because now I'm sitting here and I'm finding out what's happening in Gaza, or what's happening in Israel, or what's happening in Midwest, or what's happening in anywhere in the world. And that is too much pressure as a human being on me, that I'm taking, that I'm looking at people being killed. I'm looking at how decisions are being made in different parts of the world. So the frustration is increasing. So it is important as a leader that you understand the needs of the people and lead with that humility and empathy and understanding of why somebody will do this, or um, why somebody is in this situation, why are they late, or why somebody's not paying attention at work. And there are multiple issues that we can discuss in later on in this podcast, but the basic factor is that we need to connect with our followers. We need to connect with the people that we are working with in order to make sure that our organization is successful.
It's a very good point that you brought up, Dr. Mohammed, that in today's environment, global, the way the global affairs are, and everybody's very stressful. Not only like what's geopolitically, but also economically, everything's are changing, and everybody's, sometimes people have multiple jobs and whatnot, and in our industry, we have a concept of what we call like servant leadership, and I wanted to discuss that a little bit with you to say, what are your thoughts on that, on servant leadership, and particularly in today's environment, the way, not only in the corporate world, but also like, see, I think one of the things that is very interesting to me is education is about developing leaders, right? And we are developing leaders, and so how do you see that part of that in education of developing leaders?
So, John Maxwell said that a leader is the one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way, right? So now, if you take this concept, right, the empathetic leadership is actually derived from multiple leaderships, right? Servant leadership, part of it. Transformational leaders, part of it. We need to start thinking about success of our followers. We need to start thinking about, and earlier you've mentioned that education is about becoming leaders. We had leaders in the past. Mussolini was a leader too. Hitler was a leader too, right? So it's not, when we talk about leaders, it could be an effective leader or not effective leader. It could be a leader who is doing great things. It's a leader who might not be doing great things. So we need to start thinking about how we want to ensure that our people, the well-being of our followers is top priority. We need to start thinking about that when we are talking about leaders, we are not connecting ourselves or affiliating ourselves from the people in history that were not effective, or even if they were effective in a negative manner. For example, Hitler. If you think about Hitler, Hitler had done, the leadership wise, he ran his people well, but the outcome was bad. You look at, I believe Meiji, the 122nd emperor of Japan. Amazing leader for a very long time. Brought a lot of financial and social changes, but he was an authoritative leader, right? So now leadership has to be in different times. It has to be different. In next 50 years, it might not be empathetic leadership. Right? In 100 years, it might not be empathetic leadership that you need right now, right at that point. And every organization has different needs.
Right.
So therefore, a leader needs to understand where that leader lies. But empathy, and when we talk about empathetic leadership, it's not about a trade. It's not about just something that you talk about. It's not something that you learn. It's something, I mean, you can learn it, but it's something that's in your heart. Are you understanding your people? When we talk about empathy, when we say, hey, I'm an empathetic leader, we need to understand what empathy is. It is ability to understand and share another person's feeling. It's their experience. Why an employee comes in untidy to work? Why a person came late to work? As a leader, you need to connect with it. That person is going through a divorce. Am I going to fire that person because that person is not being productive? Right? And again, there are many other issues that we need to discuss in this, is because we want to run an effective organization too. But right now, we are just talking about empathy, and we're talking about this umbrella that we need to be under, and then we can talk about other issues.
So many different points that I'm just like noting down. You talk about empathy, and then that raises a question about emotional intelligence, right? Understanding your, the team that you have that you're leading. And then we also talk, like when you talk about understanding the people around us, and there's this notion of insubordination, right? As leaders, or however we define leadership, right? Whether that is within our work or within our family, as parents, as fathers, or at our work, or as teachers, or as husbands, or our mothers and fathers. There's this, when we talk about empathy, and particularly, I think the most challenged people have in that regard is insubordination, right? When you have, as you said, like, a leader who knows the way, shows the way, and goes the way, but when he shows the way and inspires others, and others don't follow, right? As a father, as a teacher, and in other dimensions of work, how do we handle that? Like, how do we, positively, that is to say that, a lot of times we kind of like may get a little bit emotional about it, but how do we handle that strategically so in the future, we inspire them to do these things instead of like, it comes out as more of an order in that sense.
Very good question, and it's a very general question too. A lot of people suffer the same issue, and that's why they say, "Oh, you know what? Because I was being so empathetic, people took benefit of it, right?"
Right.
And there is no doubt there will be people who will take benefit of your empathy. But if you are not running your organization while you're being an empathetic leader, and organization is not being run properly, there is a problem with your leadership. There's a problem with how you are putting it yourself out there. They say that people, Maxwell, I believe, said it, that people hear your words, but they really feel your attitude. And when people feel your attitude, they follow your attitude. There was a movie that I was watching with my kids, Karate Kid, where
Mhm.
they're showing this move of this martial arts move where this snake is moving around, and the kid said, "Oh, the girl was following the snake's movement." The other person said, "No, snake was following the girl's movement." So what I'm trying to say is you need to showcase what is real work. So let's say if you are saying that I'm being empathetic and people are taking benefit of it, that's where the biggest problem is. You're complaining about how high the wind is or how strong the wind is. You're not really figuring it out why. You're not figuring out how you're going to use that wind, right? There is a problem with your concept at first, because we quickly jump the gun and say, "Oh, they are taking benefit of my empathy." Did you assess yourself properly first? Okay. Did you assess that this guy came in 20 times late? What did you do to fix it? Right. So, for example, and again, I keep saying a late. For example, there's a project that was not being submitted on time by someone. What did you do? What were the things that you gave? What tools you gave this person to do this job? Right. What did you do to really, how did you talk to them? So, for example, you're being very empathetic about the whole nation, about the whole organization, but then with one person, you really talk bad. Also, I take this very seriously. Like, I have changed myself at home, right? I was a person who will yell at my wife or my kids, but my attitude from home and outside needs to be similar. There are no doubt that you will lose some point, but you need to, in your heart, you need to be an empathetic leader. You need to first provide all the tools to your people and then complain about it. And again, not complaining. Empathetic leaders should not complain. They should figure it out what's happening, and they should make proper calls, judgment calls. We cannot be pessimistic. How John Maxwell said that pessimistic complain about wins. The people who are optimistic or who are doers, they really figure out how to use that win for their success. We need to start thinking about that way. We need to start thinking about how our shared vision can really grow our team.
And again, as you mentioned, like shared vision, and I think one of the main things, and you have mentioned that earlier too, is how do we develop that culture in the organization or within that family or within the team that we have and within the corporation that we have, at the bigger picture, that culture of empathy, the culture of humility from top down. When we have and I've been fortunate enough to work with different in different organizations with different managers, and you can definitely tell like who's being empathetic and who's who's just being bossy and just want to they're people have titles but they don't have roles. So how to develop that culture in in an organization, and how important is that for the success of that organization?
So Mahatma Gandhi said, you may never know what results come from your actions, but if you do nothing, there will be no results.
Right.
Right. So as a person, as a visionary leader who is empathetic, really takes a look at, what do I want for this organization? What is the main goal of this organization? For example, we take university. The number one reason for this university is to provide education. Now you start taking at or disseminating knowledge, right? Now you start thinking about, how am I going to do that? What is the means that I'm going to use? Now, it's easy to say I'm an empathetic leader. I'm going to lead this with empathy. I'm going to lead my organization with empathy. I'm going to do great things. But when you come into practical environment, you look at, oh, you have different organizations, different workflows. You are collaborating with external organization. You're working with internal organization. You're working with unions. You're working with different other things. So the whole concept can go to ruins. And that's where an empathetic leader, who's truly an empathetic leader, goes off the road, because that person gets really messed up in all of this noise that is around that person. So in order for us to be the empathetic leader and create that culture of empathy, we need to focus on our goal, right? We need to be that hawk who looks at the target from up in the sky and
Right.
then shoot for it. They don't care what's coming in their way. They go shoot for it, right? That's the person that we need to be. If we want to create that culture of empathy, we need to be truly an empathetic leader, not a person who just saying, hey, you know what, this servant leadership or empathetic leadership or leading with humility and empathy is a key term that's going around, and I will be famous for that. If you're that kind of person, you're not gonna be able to create a culture. Or you may be able to create a culture, but may not be successful, right? So we need to start thinking about, with personal assessment, am I the true leader who's empathetic, who cares about people? And then once you start talking about that, then you start creating these workforce environment. For example, at human resource, you're creating an environment where people understand and listen to people. They don't just say, hey, you know what, their supervisor just sent an information out there. This person is not doing the job, so I'm going to fire that person. You are providing tools to leaders. So, you look at a hierarchy. It doesn't matter how you see it. It's a hierarchy. You're going to have a CEO, or you're going to have a president, and then you're going to have things underneath that, right? So the system is set up to be hierarchy. How about we change that system? Instead of, it is going to stay as hierarchy if you want to get something done, but bring the levels up. Stop thinking about titles. Stop thinking about who you are. Start thinking about, what are we going to do as an empathetic leaders in our own divisions. As an empathetic leader, you train your leaders in that first. You let them know that this is what I want from you. This is how we are going to deal with that. And this is where the choice comes into place, where you keep certain people and you let certain people go. Because if that person is not part of that shared vision, that person is not going to be the biggest hurdle for you to implement that empathetic leadership vision that you have for your organization. So you need to bring everybody to the same level. You need to ensure that they have tools, they have trainings, and then if they have questions, they have an opportunity to talk to you without any fear of retaliation. That, hey, I asked you this question, what did you do? So that is important, that we create an open and transparent culture, talk to people, give them tools, and then we move it down to bottom.
Great. I mean, again, we talked about, having a safe culture, and then, this psychological safety, and when, as we training them and like giving them the room to grow, letting them make mistakes, but nurturing those mistakes, as you mentioned before, like what are the tools that we gave them? What are the, what are the trainings we gave them to improve and learn from those mistakes? There's, uh, you know, um, lessons learned, like in everything, and everything we do, every project we do is very, I think, common concept in project management as well. One of the key thing you have mentioned multiple times, it is a very, like a topic of interest for me, is vision, right? And what is a vision to you? Like when you say the organization has a vision and a mission, and I, does everybody in the organization has to have the same vision? And what I'm trying to say is, like, there are like people at executive level, decision makers, the ones who are, designing the strategy, the planning, and everything else. And then there are also people at operational level and technical level. So the people like at operational and technical level, do they still have to have the same vision, or they can just operate within their paradigm, within their the scope of their work, without having that shared vision, and still be successful in that organization and be beneficial to that sort of vision?
Very good question. And it is, what do you do with your eyes? Why do we have eyes, right? We look around, we see what's going on, and the hawk up there sees fish in the pond and go for it. That's the vision, right? That's where how high that's where you can look at, right?
Mm.
But when we are talking about vision in a leadership, almost derived from the same concept, where and how far you can see. Again, I'll quote John Maxwell. May be wrong, but I think John Maxwell is you need to be close enough to your people, but also ahead enough of the people that you can actually lead them where you want them to go. You need to see further. You may not be may not have that much growth because you're growing together, but you need to have vision of where you're going. You need to
Right.
see where you're going, and that's really the vision is all about. As
But does everybody in that team have to understand that vision? That is my point. Because again, like one of the things that I think, one of my favorite quotes about vision is the ability to see that is invisible to everybody else, right?
that
And then so when we talk about it, like, as we're saying, we can, as leaders, we can see farther ahead. We know the targets, we know the goals, whatever we want to do. Yeah, and farther down the road, maybe 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. And not everybody, and as parents, as fathers, and also like as leaders in our organizations, we can see ahead of our children. We can see 10, 20 years ahead of our children, and that's how we normally see their lives. And so my point is, at that point where, and I'm bringing in the concept of children again, because again, I think if we can handle our children, we can pretty much handle everybody, right? So, so my point being is that how do we manage people who are part of the organization and who are coming to work, doing their work operationally, but they do not share that, or they don't have the concept of the vision, that vision that we have.
so the leader is the person who is leading a university, leading a country, leading an organization, a Fortune 500 company, a CEO. If you look at CEO of Apple, CEO of Starbucks, president of the country, um, you will see different kind of visions that they have. And then they surround themselves with the people who share their vision, right? But if you want to be successful, you surround yourself with people that has different visions at a higher level. Now, together, you will create a vision that actually will help you promote yourself in an area where nobody has seen. They will help you, the people who are around you, the close people, rather than saying, hey, I have a vision and I'm an empathetic leader and I'm going to get people who help me reach my vision, right? I would say let's do it. And again, I could be very well wrong, right? But in my opinion, we need to create ourselves, surround ourselves people who have brains, who have visions. Now together we can see more. This is a strategy that I was looking at. If somebody is lost or something is lost, there are multiple ways to find them, right? One way is you have 5 people and you send them into all 5 directions, right? Or you can go in one direction, all 5 people together that are separated from a little bit distance, right? Now the vision has increased. They're able to see wider. Now you're going in one direction together with a bigger and better vision. Now, this is the strategy I would suggest for everyone to have. I always follow this strategy because it helped me see further. It helps me help people grow further or go further. But now let's talk about the people. Does everybody has to have that vision? No, not everybody has to have that vision, but everybody needs to understand that we have to follow that vision, right? We need to give everybody an opportunity to share their vision because you never know that the person who is doing a clerical job or who's opening the door for someone might have a better vision than you are talking about it. But also we need to be very careful here. Why? Because you brought kids up, right? You talk to a child and the child will think, and I'll give you an example of my son who did not understand when he was little, he did not understand what jump means. But whenever he will be standing on the stairs, I will say 1, 2, and 3. On 3, he will jump. He doesn't understand that I'm saying jump. Whenever I will say 1, 2, and the word 3 comes, he knows he has to jump. Now it started from stairs, but whenever he'll be standing on a counter and I said 1, 2, and 3, he's jumping. The vision was only 1, 2, 3, right? He doesn't see anything other than the 3 letters, 3 words that I said, numbers that I said. The people of the cave, they were in the cave, their vision was in the cave. They did not know each other. They were looking ahead. Their vision is only those shadows that they had, right? So we need to start thinking about the people that we have. Again, I'll go back to the tools. Anybody who's sharing their vision with you, what are the tools that they had to see a bigger vision? If they are working on that closed vision, they must follow your vision so that they can act, and you need to give them an opportunity to clearly see your vision. Sometimes they may not understand that vision. They may not understand why you're going in that direction, but they need to have an opportunity to see that vision and clearly understand the vision that you have, or hopefully you can explain them all of it.
So what are the different tools, like whether that's like emotional intelligence or different trainings that you talk about? Like trainings could be one of the tools. So I'm trying to understand what are the different kind of tools that we can share with them, and that we can use as well, right, as leadership of any organization, but also provide to our team, so they grow and then nurture, and they, not everybody will agree with that. As you mentioned, not everybody sees that vision, and not everybody understands that vision, and but as long as they respect that vision, I would say, as long as they respect that vision, and they do within their scope what they want to do. What kind of tools, when you talk about tools and we have to give them tools, what do you mean by that?
So tools you need to have. So for example, you're saying that, hey, and a person who works in purchasing in your department, they are not going well with your vision. They're not doing what you want them to do, and you're complaining about it. Now that's a problem, right? Because they're not doing their job, and now you're saying, hey, you know what do I do? Should I fire them? Should I keep them? Should I let them go? Right? All of this is happening, but what did you do for them? For example, did you provide them training? Did they understand? Did they had full access or at least access enough to your vision? To what did you want them to do? Did you tell them exactly what do you want them to do? For example, I tell you, hey, give me a cup of coffee, right? Now you brought me a cup of coffee and you're giving me in a black cup. I'm like, no, I wanted a white cup. Okay, then you should have told me so, right? Right. So
Right.
this is what you want to do. You want to make sure, you want to ensure that proper directions are being given to people. You need to understand, you need to give them an opportunity to grow. You need to give them an environment. For example, you want to build trust with them, but you have cameras everywhere noting every movement of theirs. And then you are complaining that the person is stealing in your organization. Yes, you have a trust issue already with them. You did not build up that trust. Build that trust with them. Then you will not see them stealing. Now they are still stealing. You're probably not paying them enough, right? Oh, they're still stealing. You're paying them enough. Did you understand their house and what's happening in their family? Oh, they're still stealing. Did you understand their community that they're in? As a leader, it's very difficult to be a leader and to ensure that all of these things are being done properly. That's where you need to lift the people who are close to you, who are in leadership roles, up to a certain level. When we talk about tools, it's all about trainings. It's all about proper platforms. Purchasing tools might be different than the tools for HR. HR tools might be different than IT services, right? So everything has to be different. But the mission, vision that's coming from the upper organization, that is letting everybody know that this is what everybody has to do. Leaders needs to understand what's happening with each person. It's very difficult for one leader to understand what's happening in the whole organization, but they need to develop a culture where individual leader of each unit is understanding what's happening with their team, and then the team needs to understand what's happening with each other. That's where you develop a culture, and that is all of the tools that you need to be successful to create an empathetic culture.
Dr. Aya, when you say that we need to give them a training, in any organization, people are at different levels from line level to an XCOM level. For a leader to have that sort of training or have that sort of tools, first the person needs to understand every individual. For a small company, yes, it can be done, but how can we implement those in a larger enterprise? Maybe in a lifetime, and a CEO of a company, he might not go to see a laborer who's working for him.
Right. So a CEO does not need to know exactly who is the person who's driving the car for other individual. A CEO may not need to know who is filing a paper in certain department, or who is using mail services, or who's putting a plant on the ground. A CEO may not need to know, or CEO may not ever know who that person is. But the culture that is developed throughout the organization, that hey, I know my top people. So I'm a CEO of a large company that has 2,500 or plus employees, or 70,000 employees, or 100,000 employees. Now you're saying I'm a CEO of that company. I may not know the 100,000 employee of my company, but I know these 5 people who are around me. Those 5 people know the 5 people around them. So that's 25 people, and that's an impact that's going to keep growing as an atomic bomb, right? So impact is going to keep growing. The training that we're talking about, this training is a bigger aspect, right? So we talk about training again, it becomes political, and I don't want to talk about what's happening with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and closing of that, right? Offices, and office may close, but it's not about the office. It's about the understanding of why we need to have a diverse environment. Why we need to have an equitable environment? Why need to have inclusive environment? What do we do? Why am I a person? So my boss, I thank God I always had amazing supervisors. Once we were sitting in the office and one person, I was a Muslim, my boss was Christian, and my colleague was Jew. We were all three talking about the world politics, right? So what's happening around the world? My closest colleagues few are Jew, few are Christians, right? This is an environment. This is the diversity. Few are black. Few are from East Europe. Few are from Asia, from South Asia. Right. This is diversity. When we are talking to each other, when we are providing training, we are teaching everyone how to understand each other, how to be able to survive together. Again, I don't know how many of the users and what culture or what religion they belong from, but I am very much influenced by Islamic culture. When we talk about religion, our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he came and the religion was brought to him, that time was we call it time of Jahiliyyah, where people were not, people had such an ignorant people, and they were arrogant too. The pride in them, the leaders that were leading, they had pride in them. They have slaves around them. They wanted to be praised as pharaohs of that time, right? They used to kill their daughters. They used to be like, if you don't listen to me, you're finished, right? That's the culture that they developed, and that kept going. And when Prophet came, he said, you know what? I'm going to stop this culture. We're going to have rules and regulations for certain things. There are going to be rules for war. You're not going to kill innocent women. You're not going to kill women. You're not going to kill any older people. You're not going to kill children. You're not going to burn crops. You're not going to hit the places of worship. Right? So the culture was being changed. The culture of empathy was brought at that time. He was leading with this target, saying, "Hey, you know what? Yes, we need to win, but we need to win by doing certain things." And when in an organization you create that culture that, hey, I need to win, I need to do better, but with certain rules and regulation. You need to follow as a leader, as a top leader, saying, hey, I am going to give you these rules. For example, I'll give you one example. During the time of Hazrat Umar, there was an incident happened in Iran, and he had brought this leader in Iran who had done something. His son had done something. He had brought his father to him and talked to his father that how dare your son did something wrong. Again, we'll talk about that in detail sometime. But the culture of saying, hey, you know what? I am going to give you this book. I'm going to give you this rules as an empathetic leader. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you must follow that. If you need to be, and we talked about that shared vision. If you want to change something, let me know and we can change it together. Because I may not know what's happening, how to culturally responsible. So let's say you are a multinational organization. The rules that you will build in the United States may not work in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Pakistan or Australia, right? There are rules for United States. But then you work with that organization there and you create that book that everybody needs to follow, that, hey, this is the rules. You're not going to take bribery. You are not going to, you are going to be inclusive. You are going to be respectful to people. You are going to be inclusive. You are going to give women the same rights as men. You're going to give people, doesn't matter what color they have, same rights. It doesn't matter if they're gay, lesbian, whatever they are. You are going to give them rights because they are humans. Your perspective as an individual could be different. You know, you may say, you know what, I don't believe in this, but that's okay. That's your belief. Live with your belief, but let other people live with their belief. And that is the training that everybody needs to get.
Right. So, one of the things that you mentioned is having different understandings of cultures in different organizations, right? You mentioned like, at enterprise level, there could be things that are global, the things that are more like regional, like, as you mentioned, USA would be different than Middle East, or Africa will be different than Europe, and Far East Asia would be different than other countries. So these environments that we have, how do we adapt to that? And also, I think we touched it a little bit earlier. And one of the things I want to bring up is uh, in the very beginning of this conversation, we talked about how people take advantage of your humility, and being, and how do we overcome that? And how do we, uh, there are some kind of a deterrence to that people do not take, because if the way I see it, if somebody's taking advantage of that, he's not just taking advantage of myself, he's taking advantage of all the other teammates who are not, manipulating in such a way. You know what I mean? And
Right.
how do we embrace humility in an organization or in an environment without being appearing as weak, I guess. It's, I think.
So, you know, Jesus said that if somebody hits you on your slaps you on one side, you bring the other chin in front, right? And sometimes we say that people will take benefit today, and they might hit you again,
Wow.
right? Uh, so
Really?
that's the concept of eye for eye. You hit me, I'm gonna hit you back.
Right.
All of that comes into very important part where what are you doing as a leader?
Mhm.
It's all about leadership. It's
Mm.
it's all about how you set up your rules. Are people going to take benefit of you? Absolutely, right? But when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was hurt in Taif, and his blood was all over, right? He was walking, and the blood was so much that you could hear the blood with his slippers, right? When an angel asked him that if you want, we can finish these people among these two, or collapse them among the two mountains. He said no. And today, the people of Taif are Muslim. The generations after them are Muslim. Uh, that prayer that happened by Prophet at that time set the tone for what is going to happen in future. The leader set up the tone. As a leader, you set up that tone of what you want people to do. Yes, you need to set up rules. Yes, you need to set up rules and regulations, and proper implementation has to happen. But you have to understand that people have different uh, issues and different struggles. My struggles are different than your struggles. If you can tell me 100% that you understand my situation, you understand my struggles, and then you have created your workflow so perfectly that nothing can go, there is no gap, then that problem comes in. Okay, you know what? Perfect. Reprimand me for what I did wrong. But before that, as a leader, perfect your workflows. Provide everything that you have. Now, let's look at the people who are taking benefit of you. You have to create workflows where you understand that what is the benefit. Okay, what do you call somebody who's taking benefit of your policy? For example, one of my friend, he works in a corporation in New York City. They are project based. He gets quite a bit of money, and if he gets the project done within 6 months, then they don't really have to work for the rest of the year, right? Or look at Pixar, look at Google, how they have created their lunch places, their breakfast places, or their playgrounds, the timings that they have done. So I'm not saying that's an empathetic leadership. What I'm saying is they have provided them things that that they can take benefit of. They can play 24/7 on an Xbox or Google or PlayStation or whatever. They may not work, or they may eat all of the food, but they have set up this trust among themselves. And that's the last part I want to cover, is the trust. When, as an organization, you build a trust with your peers, with your team members, with your followers, things go right. Someone is taking benefit of you, that either because you don't trust them or they don't trust you. The trust has not built, that this is not happening. That is why they are taking benefit of you. You need to set up this organization in a way, and there is no organization that is a perfect organization. People will take benefit. It doesn't matter how good you are, people will take benefit of you. There are a few people who are just, they are on the wrong side anyway. So we'll talk about them. We should do another lecture about them separately. But this one, we are talking about individual by nature. You need to give them that full trust that you have. Once you build that trust with your team, you will see everything will go fine. There are times that you are going to have to hold some information from going back to them because of security issues, because of legal issues. That's okay, but you need to be transparent with them as much as you can. You need to let them understand that, hey, I have something, I'm hiding it from you because of legal issues or for whatever reasons. But the trust will still remains the same because they know you now. They have built up a trust with you, and you will see those people will never cheat you. They will not do something wrong. They will do things on time for you. They will do things that are perfect for you as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, I want to come back to this point, and how do we develop trust? What is an organization, and how can we develop um, a culture of trust? But we also have that concept that one bad apple rottens all the rest of the apples too, right? So we have to be conscious of that. But before that, you had talked about like having workflows and perfect workflows. But as we know, like life is not perfect, right? We cannot possibly plan for every uh possible scenario out there. We can't. It just doesn't happen, right? And how important is like situational awareness, and to have scenario planning, if you will, or how being able to adapt to the unknown. I mean, life is more about unknowns. How do we handle unknowns than the knowns? Knowns we know. We're pretty comfortable. We know how to handle that, good, bad, the ugly. But I think the biggest area of fog becomes when it's unknown. And I don't know who said that, but someone mentioned that leadership is like climbing a mountain, like a tall mountain, but it's up in the clouds. So you cannot see, and it's foggy. So you cannot see more than 3 or 4 steps, right? And you cannot even see where the peak is, but you just keep on climbing, and with every step, you see another 3, 4 steps. With every step, you see another 3, 4 steps. So it is, and there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, there's more unknowns than unknowns. And how do we handle that? How do we train for that more than anything else? And what kind of tools can we provide and avail for ourselves and the people around us and
That's
our team?
right. That's a beautiful question, right? That's actually a perfect question. So, especially for we are reaching at the end of the time. I will give you example of cricket. I play cricket, right? So cricket, a bowler balls the ball. When it hits the ground, it comes to you, and that's, as a batsman, you play that ball, and you have all direction 360. You can hit anywhere. Now,
Mhm.
uh, when you are playing at a pitch that is very easy, all right, we're batsman friendly. We call it a pitch that you see the ball that comes directly to you, you hit it, right? That's a
Right.
batsman friendly. You see a lot of scores on
Even bounce,
it, right?
even
Even bounce,
Steven.
right? Now you're talking about an uneven bounce and the pitch that has a lot of cracks in it.
Right.
Ball comes to you and it can go anywhere. It can go left, right. Doesn't matter how good the baller was. The ball can go anywhere because there are a lot of cracks on it. The batsmen in that case, people, the teams that are good, they will still score good. They may not go a lot of scores, but they will still score big on it. It's not about the situation that they were in, it's about how well they were trained to see the ball that's coming towards them, right? And this is what I will tell you, that as an individual, as a leader of an organization or a leader of a unit within that organization, you need to be trained, and you need to train your team to 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 deal with anything that comes their way. Now, imagine you get out, you're not able to handle that situation. That's okay. Because, as Nelson Mandela said, I either, what was his comment? I don't ever fail. I either win or learn. I never fail. I either win or I learn. Right? So this is what happens. You will learn from that situation. Next time, write it in that workflows, that if this is what happens, this is how you need to deal with it. Sometimes these things cost a lot of money. Sometimes you made a decision that cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, but that's okay. I mean, I know it's not okay. Sometimes the companies went bankrupt because of that. But guess what? One company will go bankrupt, the other company will learn from that mistake and will not do the same mistake. This is what all about learning. And especially today's in global village, we need to start thinking about it very carefully. That things that are happening around the globe, the people, the leaders that are doing different mistakes, how to deal with those mistakes, how to really, as a leader, what am I doing? That's why earlier you asked what leaders needs to do, tools needs to have. It's all about learning, reading, read the books, read what the leaders have written in times of issues, in times of World War II. What was happening? How leaders, they developed different skills. Early 1900s, what happened? Think about Mughals. Why did they vanish? They were at a biggest, they were all over. Why did Mughals fall? Right? Was that a leadership issue, or was that a people issue? Was it a trust issue? There was all of the above. In this case, all of the above. But the problem is, we need to understand that every era we had different issues. What happened in 1100s to different nations who were at a top? What happened to them in 1400s? What happened to them now, right? So we need to start thinking about, as leaders, that and understand this, that every era is different. But as a leader, the decisions that you make, we talk about Meiji, the 122nd leader of Japan. He was authoritative leader, but did the best changes in for Japan, right? Today, if you bring him, his authoritative leadership may not work for us, right? It may not be good for us. We need to start thinking about how are we going to ensure that we as leaders are solidifying everything. We are learning from things that are happening around us. We are learning from history, and we are staying ahead of the curve because we have a vision, and we need to keep people around us who have a good vision.
So many points you brought up, and as you said, like we will need to discuss this in much more detail. You talk about like leadership in crisis, and you talk about like the fall of nations, so to speak, right? How particularly from like a Muslim perspective, like how you talk about Mughal Empire and the Ottoman Caliphate and all of that, and like the quote unquote the golden age of like science and discovery and the discovery of knowledge, and how we stand where we stand today. And again, a lot of that is absolutely about leadership or lack thereof.
Right.
Yeah. And well, I know we are almost at time. So first and foremost, I really do want to thank you for this opportunity, for sharing your wisdom with us. And at the same time, I want to like give you some floor at the last moment to, if you have any last word to say. And also for the audience, we will inshallah have more of these podcasts coming. This was just more like an introduction and see what we're going with. We'll have a lot more conversations with Dr. Muhammad, not only about leadership but education, because if you talk about this, the whole concept of edifying education is about mentorship, which is again, a big part of any leadership. So, we will have those conversations. And, since we are at time, I just wanted to give you some last words that you want to say and share with our audience. And for those of you who want to continue, you can go to our website, and these podcasts will come. And of course, if there's any particular topics you guys want to discuss, let us know, and we will have those topics as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk to you guys and your audience. As a leader, I would say we need to be a lifelong learner ourselves. We need to keep learning, and we need to keep focusing on our learning as leaders. If you are a leader or you would like to be a leader, it is important that we keep learning. Learning from everything that is around us, learning from your kids, learning from the people around you, the people in your team, the people on the road, the person who's taking your orders at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or at any other shop that you have to learn what's happening around you. You have to notice things, and you have to be a person who is in always a state of understanding and learning of culture, learning of perspectives. And when we talk about empathetic leadership, we are talking about the people who are understanding other people in the right way. We are not using the keywords or we are not using these hot words for our success. It is about success of everyone. And when we are all successful, as an individual, you will become successful. When you see your community being successful, you are successful. And if you don't see a change, if you call yourself a leader, if I call myself a leader, and I don't see a change in myself, in my family, in my community, in my area, then I am failing as a leader. And I tell this to myself first, and I tell this to everyone who's watching, that we need to focus on ourselves and our learning, our professional development as a leader, as an individual, and then we will be able to make a change. And change is happening. It is you cannot stop change. It is always happening. But success is something that you can define by yourself and with your attitude.
Well, great last words, and I think we could just like talk about that, just affecting change, because that transformational leadership is, and having that vision is what we started with. And I think we came like to a complete circle. We ending up with the change. And, that's a very good topic that we should at least discuss probably in the future is transformational leadership. And you talk about change. How do we affect change in ourselves and the people around us, and then in the culture around us? Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Inshallah, we'll see you soon.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.